In a lively town in northern India, two tailors named Rohan and Manoj worked in shops facing each other across a narrow lane. Rohan was a man of pure grit. He believed that success came only to those who outworked everyone else. He woke up before the birds, often skipping breakfast to start stitching in the dark. His lamp was the first to glow each morning and the last to fade at midnight. He accepted every order that came his way, no matter how small or difficult. If a customer needed a shirt by the next morning, Rohan would stay up all night, sewing with tired, trembling hands. His wife would beg him to rest, but he would wave her away saying, "Hard work is my only god." Manoj, across the lane, lived by a different rule. He too arrived early, but his first hour was never spent stitching. He would sit quietly, sipping tea, and plan his day. He sorted his threads by color, arranged his needles by size, and measured each piece of cloth twice before making the first cut. He kept a small notebook where he sketched patterns and noted the most efficient way to sew each type of garment. The neighbors often laughed at him. "Look at Rohan," they would whisper. "He sweats blood for his work. Manoj sits around like a retired clerk." But Manoj never argued. He simply smiled and continued his quiet routine. One summer, a rich businessman named Mr. Chaudhary came to town. He needed 300 uniforms for the workers in his new factory, and he needed them in 3 weeks. The payment was generous enough to change a tailor's life. Rohan heard the news and rushed to Mr. Chaudhary before the businessman had even finished his tea. "Sir, give me the order," Rohan said with desperate energy. "I will work day and night. I will not sleep. I will not stop until every uniform is done." Impressed by his passion, Mr. Chaudhary handed him the entire contract. Manoj also approached the businessman, but calmly. "Sir," he said, "I do not ask for the full order today. Just give me 2 days. Let me make 10 sample uniforms. If you like my quality and speed, give me half the work." Mr. Chaudhary agreed, appreciating the honesty. Rohan began cutting cloth like a man possessed. He measured each uniform separately, cut each piece with fresh effort, and stitched every seam as if it were his first. He worked 18, then 20, then 22 hours a day. His fingers grew raw. His eyes became red and unfocused. Mistakes crept in: crooked collars, uneven sleeves, buttons sewn slightly off. He fixed each error, but fixing took twice as long as doing it right the first time. His shop became a mess of half-finished uniforms and tangled thread. Manoj, meanwhile, did something clever. He spent his first day making a perfect cardboard pattern for the uniform. He measured it 5 times. Then he stacked 10 layers of cloth on his long table, placed the pattern on top, and cut all 10 layers in one smooth motion with his sharpest scissors. In 2 hours, he had cut 100 uniforms. He then trained his young nephew, Gopal, to sew the straight parts on the machine while he focused on the tricky areas: collars, buttonholes, and pockets. He arranged his workspace so that the ironing board was next to the sewing table, and the box of buttons was always within reach. He took short breaks every 2 hours to rest his eyes and stretch his fingers. A fresh mind, he knew, made fewer mistakes. After 20 days, Mr. Chaudhary returned to check on both tailors. Rohan's shop looked like a storm had hit it. He had finished only 200 uniforms, and many had flaws: loose threads, mismatched sizes, crooked stitching. Rohan himself looked half dead, pale and shaking, with bandages on his fingers. He had worked harder than anyone could ask, but hard work alone had failed him. He sat on a pile of unfinished cloth and cried. Manoj welcomed the businessman into a clean, organized shop. He had completed all 150 of his uniforms in just 17 days. Every single one was perfect, identical in size, straight in seam, neat in finish. Mr. Chaudhary ran his hand over the fabric and nodded with satisfaction. He paid Manoj double the agreed amount and signed a contract for all future orders. To Rohan, he paid only for the usable uniforms, which barely covered the cost of the cloth. That evening, Rohan sat alone in his dark shop, broken and confused. I worked so much harder than him, he whispered to himself. How is this fair? Manoj saw his neighbor sitting in the dark. He crossed the lane and sat down next to Rohan without saying a word for a long moment. Then he spoke softly. Friend, you have the heart of a lion. But you have been fighting with a blunt sword. I work fewer hours than you, yet I earn more. Why? Because every hour I work smart. I plan. I organize. I train others. You work until your hands bleed, but bleeding does not sew straight seams. A farmer who sharpens his plow for an hour plows more land in a day than a farmer who swings a dull blade from sunrise to sunset. Tears rolled down Rohan's cheeks. Teach me, he said humbly. Not your scissors. Your mind. From that day on, the two tailors became partners. Rohan brought his endless energy and his willingness to do whatever it took. Manoj brought his systems, his patterns, and his calm discipline. They renamed their shop Rohan Manoj Tailors. Within 2 years, they had the biggest garment business in the district. They hired 20 workers, trained them in smart methods, and never again chased an order with blind desperation. They learned a powerful truth: wealth does not come to the one who works the longest hours. It comes to the one who makes every hour count twice.